Today's horror story is written by Rick the Intern. I took a double-wide trip down memory lane. At the end of it, mental shrubbery and mental mailboxes crushed and crooked. I called a friend I hadn't talked to in years to tell about my idea.
So, you want to use Blood Candle Bill to get Jordan's soul out of hell?
Horace said over the phone. Only temporarily. Long enough to ask him why he did what he did. I don't plan on getting nabbed by Blood Candle Bill.
You believe in that?
No, but I want to try it. See how it goes.
Yeah, I'd like to see too. So, what do you want from me?
All you have to do is watch. I'm going to hook you up with a program for monitoring cameras I'm setting up across my house. Watch and tell me if you notice anything.
You gonna record it for posterity or fame?
Forget about all that, I said. But speaking of recording it, why don't you go ahead and do that, just so if anything happens to me, you can take it to the police. Or the church. Or the FBI. Whatever party you think is most relevant. Blood Candle Bill. He's the guy you summon when you want to contact a spirit you think is in hell. 11 years ago, Jordan lost his shit and went on a stabbing spree while representing our startup company's software at a tech convention meet and greet. Lost his shit might be an understatement, as he babbled in several languages, including made-up ones, while committing the atrocities. I got to hear some of the things he said when it accompanied a bunch of blurred-out images on the news. Jordan acted equally as much a freak in the slammer, and before they could even give him the death sentence, he was found bludgeoned to death in his cell. That meet and greet, before Jordan did what he did, was supposed to have been our way inside, an introduction of our company to big leaguers. Instead, it had been a way out, blacklisting us forever. The startup we had then had revolved around blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies. That was way back in 2010, when Bitcoin was first really available to buy. Between you and me, I wasn't wanting to contact Jordan to ask him why he'd ruined our startup company, and all of our names with it, or even why he'd killed those people. I was wanting to ask him the password to his Bitcoin wallet. To my knowledge, his family never knew about those Bitcoins. I've plied his family with careful questions since, and it seems they're in the dark. You may have heard of the guy who used 10,000 Bitcoins back in 2010 to buy 2 pizzas. Well, Jordan had about 100,000 Bitcoins in his wallet in 2010 before he went to jail. And I know this for a fact because he shared me his screen of them. The reason he was crazy enough to drop $1,000 on a nearly valueless crypto back then was because we all believed crypto was the future, even back then. That's why we had to put borrowed funds as well as our own on the line and dropped out of college for that startup company of ours. We believed we could help develop and troubleshoot a technology that would completely take the financial landscape by storm. Nowadays, Jordan's Bitcoins would be worth about $500 million in total. There's no way he'd need that money in hell. I really didn't think summoning Blood Candle Bill would work, but can you blame me for trying to get Jordan's ghost out of hell so that I could ask the password to a crypto wallet worth $500 million? Horace didn't need to know all that about Jordan's Bitcoin wallet. I plied him with questions as well, and just as carefully as I've done with Jordan's family. It seemed he never knew. If summoning Blood Candle Bill somehow worked, maybe I'd throw him a bone or two to chew on. Horace hadn't exactly been helpful when I'd gone into debt after that meet and greet fiasco. Other than the blood of Jordan's victims, it had mostly been my blood, sweat, tears, and funding that had gone into our startup. Sure, Horace was likely to find out when and if I asked Jordan's ghost his crypto wallet password, but we would cross that bridge when and if we got there. Last night, I did it. I turned off all my lights, I got all the candles ready on the coffee table in my living room. 31 candles, because Jordan would be exactly 31 years old if he were still alive. I moved the lamp and set my laptop up at the end of the table, facing the candles. I dimmed the computer screen. The tilted, half-smiling oblong of his face smeared into shadow. I put my two-way earbuds in, which were wirelessly connected to the audio of the computer. Horace told me to go ahead and light the candles. Best thing to do, he said, was to get it over with. As I lit each candle, my hand was shaking. Horace made a crude joke about it, something about an alcoholic taking swigs during withdrawal. I caught him back for the tremor in his voice. Horace said he was excited. Excited to, maybe, possibly, see an old friend. Even though that old friend had murdered 2 tech moguls and 5 of their coattail riders. Way back in the yesterdecade of 2010, at a time when Bitcoin was used for ordering pizzas and throwing around as fodder in arguments about a hypothetical future that would probably never exist. A future that is now. Once all of the 31 candles were lit, to represent Jordan's age, I got ready for the next step. It was then, during that pause, that Horace said I didn't need to go through with it if I didn't want to. There was an almost mocking tone to his voice. I didn't like that. Just focus on the cameras, I said. Can you see all 6 of them where you're at? I heard a couple of mouse clicks on the other side.
Yes,
but then we're good, I said. Wait, what else were you gonna say?
But there's something moving on camera 1. I'm calling it camera 1 in your garage.
What? I'm not even finished yet. My stomach pickled in a brine of dread.
These cameras are motion detecting, right?
His voice in my earbuds was garbled and buzzing, as if interference was getting in the way. At the same time, the candles flickered. The dark outside of that circle of light, the dark outside of me, was a forest of shadows of the could-be-anything kind. I didn't want to raise the brightness of my computer screen and try to see what the cameras were picking up, because that might get in the way of the ritual. All of the lights in the house except for the candles were supposed to be off. I'd even taped over the power light and the webcam light. The only reason I was using my laptop instead of a phone was so that Horace and I could have a backup camera if we needed it. Even though it wouldn't have night vision like the others, I could take it anywhere and it would probably do a better job than my cell phone camera. It was up to Horace to monitor the cameras on his end, and for me to listen to his voice.
It's moving in the garage. Moving like it's something big.
Damn it. Whoever it is will just have to wait. I gotta continue. Keep an eye on them, Horace.
Wait, they've turned in the direction of the camera. Shadowy. I can't make out any details.
The garage door is locked, I said. Let him stare at the camera for a while. Squatting over the coffee table with its array of candles, I unfolded my pocket knife and cut the palm of my right hand. I began to sprinkle at least 1 drop of my blood over every candle flame. Each candle hissed and guttered, but they reformed as perfect as before. The fire was eating my blood, at least 1 drop for each. After about half of them were done, I said, "What's going on now? Tell me something. That person still moving around the garage?"
Can't tell if it's a person,
Horace replied. Goose pimples rode the naked flesh of my forearm. Those cameras should be on night vision mode. You should be able to tell.
I don't know. That walk-through door leading into your house. You said it's locked, right?
Yeah, I said, hoping it was true. I remembered locking it, but what if I hadn't? So they're just standing there? I said, not trying the doorknob or anything?
They're not trying the doorknob.
Do you see hair on the back of their head?
What kind of question is that? I don't see any hair.
So what does it look like? Is it shaped like a person's body, or... At that point, I had dropped some of my palm blood on the final candle. The 31st candle. Jordan Heathrow. Age 31 in hell. Blood Candle Bill. Bring him back. The candle flames danced again, all 31 of them, in the complete absence of moving air. I turned off the AC so that the candles would not go out. Maybe it was my breath that caused the flames to flicker like that. Now, I just have to make it to dawn, I said. Light the candles after dusk, feed them your blood, and then last till dawn. During that time, the spirit will come, and then so will Bill. Just have to make it until dawn without him catching me. Got my hiding places picked out. Horace, you good over there? Talk to me.
It's gone.
What do you mean, it's gone?
That thing in the garage hovering by the walk-through door. It's gone. I don't know when, but I blinked and now it isn't there anymore.
I nearly choked on my next words. Why was it in the garage in the first place? Why the fuck was it in there? It would make more sense for a spirit or Bill or whatever the fuck that is to be hanging out near the front or back door until I completed the summoning ritual. It was already in the house. In the garage. Why was it there?
Did you set a camera up near your front or back door?
No, I said. As you can clearly see.
There you go.
What do you mean, there you go?
Maybe it's fooling around, trying to get a rise out of you.
Maybe you're trying to get a rise out of me, I said.
Better get to one of those hiding spots.
I've been wrapping my cut hand in a bandage all the while. I tied a bad knot with hands that shook so much I could barely grab things. I didn't want to get too far from the candles on the coffee table in the living room. At the same time, I needed to get far away from them, as far away from them as possible. I tiptoed into darkness that felt to my fear like diving into freezing water. I fumbled my way into the hallway leading to the 2 bedrooms and the bathroom. I started edging my way along the walls towards my bedroom. I had rigged up a closet in there with a way to lock it from the inside.
Stop,
Horace said. I froze where I was, each heartbeat and each breath like power tools going off in a library. I peeked back into the living room. The candles wavered. Something, I thought.
Something is moving in the living room,
Horace said just as I was figuring it out.
It's approaching the candlelight. Slowly.
I was on the move again, as quietly as I could, hoping that the darkness of the hallway would hide me well enough from whatever was in the living room.
No!
Horace buzzed in my ears.
Stop!
I froze again. My chest was heaving too much, thumping. I tried to hold my breath. I was too loud.
I can't say for sure,
Horace said while breathing heavily himself through the audio.
but I'm pretty certain there's something else in the hall with you. The hallway camera detected motion and swiveled in that direction.
I stood so rigid against the wall that I felt like I was part of it. That didn't help, though. A presence brushed up beside me, tickling the raised hairs on my forearm and tickling the inside of my ear with its hot breath. It whispered into my ear in a voice I hadn't heard in a decade. A voice that brought to mind recordings of that fateful day. Recordings that had been played over and over on the local and then national news. Recordings in several languages at the same time on a blood-soaked, flesh-gutted scene whose visuals had been omitted for the sake of decency. Omitted, but suggested. Jordan's voice. It whispered into my ear. You better hurry. What was I supposed to ask again? My head was a mess. I just wanted to survive. The password, I whispered back. Password, it replied, almost facetiously.
Who are you talking to?
Horace said in my earbuds. His voice was much louder, also causing me to jump. You can't hear him? It's Jordan. Jordan has come back. Who are you talking to? Jordan whispered. Why can't they hear each other? I wondered, in a trivial thought that was like a ball bounced on the deck of a sinking ship. The thing that was Jordan's spirit, or pretending to be Jordan's spirit, was right upon me, while Horace should be able to hear Jordan much better than he'd hear me, as close as he was to that two-way earpiece. "Horace," I said as, in the living room, something large moved into the light of the candles. "Why can't you hear Jordan?"
"I'm not Horace."
Was it the voice in my earbuds, or the voice whispering in my ear from beyond the grave? It had to be Horace. It was in his voice, and it was electronic. But why would he say it wasn't Horace? "I'm not Horace," whispered the voice right next to me in echo. A cold hand gripped my arm. Too cold. It brought to mind an icy darkness, deep, deep under the world we thought we knew, deeper than the core of the earth. Deep and cold and hot. Somehow so very hot, all at the same time. Infernally hot. It all suggested a place that was crowded with tormented flesh and tormenting toys that rode dark shores and rose from darker waves. I was reminded at that time that I could not turn on the lights, nor could I leave. If all of those other things about Blood Candle Bill were true and real, then if I turned on the lights or tried to leave before dawn, my soul would be forfeit. That's how the legend went. Blood Candle Bill would take my soul to hell to replace Jordan's, and Jordan's spirit would be free to haunt the earth for all time. I switched tactics. A Bitcoin wallet password would do no good to me in hell any more than it would for Jordan. "Why did you do it?" I said to Jordan. "Why did you murder those people that day?" "Because I'm not Jordan."
"And I'm not Horace."
Its voice nibbled up out of a pit of whispers until it was loud enough to sink me to my knees. There was power in its hold. So much power. I felt like a child next to it. Less than a speck. It pulled me up with a hand whose claws were brought to my attention as they sank into my flesh. Beyond, hovering above the candles in the living room, was a shape. It was the shape of the 7 innocents that Jordan had slaughtered. 7 merged together. I knew because I recognized the company colors and logo emblazoned on tattered fabrics. 7 heads and 7 sets of arms and legs twisted in a mass of unholy agony. It had to be a specter. There was no way that was really those people. They were gone. Gone to heaven, I hoped. They howled as I again tried to sink down. Once more, Blood Candle Bill pulled me up.
"I've got you,"
he said. His voice had changed from Jordan's to one that I don't want to describe. It would be better off if I didn't. He's tricked me somehow, I thought. And then, dwelling on tricks and drowning in my panic, something shook loose from my subconscious. Shook loose and rose to the surface as I faced my unending immortal torture to come. Jordan. He'd been the one to tell Horace and me about the legend of Blood Candle Bill. He'd told us one day over too many beers and too much stress at the end of a particularly tough week, when the mantra of this startup is going to save our lives was dead on our lips. Dead and rotted, but still hopeful, like we could see a light in the hollowed-out eye pits of its skull. Twin flickers of candle flames. Jordan had shared the legend of Blood Candle Bill with us, and we'd laughed. We said his name sounded like some kind of pirate or cowboy, but we'd peeked over our shoulders and we'd glanced about, because there had been something in the air, like static, or like a cold and hot hand wrapping around your forearm in a dark hallway. A trick. I reached for the light switch to the right of my head. Blood Candle Bill wailed, a wail that'll likely haunt me sick and sleepless for a while to come, if I make it that long. When I turned on the light, there was no one beside me. The pressure on my forearm was gone. I hadn't seen Blood Candle Bill's face, not completely, but I got suggestions of it in the dark as my eyes had adjusted. It was enough. Not longer than I turned on the light, Horace started babbling. He babbled in nonsense, in tongues. I turned off the audio feed in my earbuds. That happened last night. I've been watching the local news while working myself up to call the police and tell them to go to Horace's apartment, even though, for all I can tell, he's yet to commit any crimes like those sordid deeds done by Jordan years ago. Horace would have recorded footage on his end, if he ever truly began recording. Maybe I can even work my way up into sneaking into his apartment to try and get it. Thank you for listening. You can probably handle another horror story, right?